Hello and welcome to your second COMPSCI 1MD3 tutorial. My name is Swale and I am your new TA for the rest of the semester. And I wanted to start off by apologizing that you guys were lucky enough to have Indika last week, and now you guys have been switched to have me. So this is a travesty that cannot be made up for, and I do truly apologize you guys got stuck with me instead of Indika. I would be mad myself, but that's just the way the world goes. But yeah. So I thought I'd post the link a bit early today, just in case we had any trouble. She just hated you guys so much. And no, I'm kidding. Yeah, we just I was actually supposed to do this one last week, and Indika was supposed to do the Friday afternoon one, but we just switched because just scheduling issues. So that happens like pretty often, to be honest. Like if we have an event going on or something, we need to cover each other. So yeah, all the tutorial TAs help out when need be. Yeah, Indika's still teaching. She does the Tuesday afternoon one. So if you guys want to do class with her instead, which I totally understand, you can just tune in to the Tuesday afternoon at 2:30 tutorial. And yeah, you can see Indika then at a cool. Yeah, so we will be actually starting class at 10:30, but I was a bit concerned because I thought I'd post the link a bit early just in case your classmates went to the other tutorial just by accident. But yeah, if you guys want to tune me out or put me on mute till 10:30, totally understand. But yeah, in the meantime, I really hope that your first few weeks are going well in class. I'm really sorry it has to be online, but I guess something's better than nothing. And I guess some things you didn't hear me say last week is that the main point of view, in my perspective of CompSci 1MD3 tutorials, is not really to teach you how to code. I think the best people to teach you how to code is like just proper YouTube tutorials like Khan Academy or Bucky from New Boston. And the best way to learn is just by taking on some technical side project, and then along the way, you learn what you need to make that project. But yeah, in my opinion, the point of tutorials is just to do problems that are similar to the midterm. And that way it prepares you not necessarily for how to code, but how to like just do well on tests and such. So in my tutorials, all we do is we just take up a bunch of coding problems one after another. And that's what we'll be doing today, while simultaneously learning about for loops and lists and other concepts. So yeah, I hope we are excited for today's class. I hope some more of your classmates tune in. I'm not sure how big this class is. Although I imagine like a Friday morning tutorial, not too many kids wanted to sign up. Oh, and I also wanted to apologize because I am live streaming from Brampton, Ontario right now, which means that like every 10 minutes you're going to hear somebody come like blaring down the road, and they're souped up Civics. So I apologize that your ears have to go through that. But yeah, today's tutorial is pretty easy in my opinion. All the questions I'm confident you guys can get done without me. So basically, I'll just pose each question to you one at a time. I'll give you guys 2 minutes to get it done, and then I'll take it up. And if this was, yeah, sure, totally. If you have any assignment questions, I can take a look at them. So Nick did say in the tutorial notes to not like specifically give you the answers, and these are recorded, so I can't be that generous. But totally, if you have any questions, I'll take a look at them and kind of prod you in the right way. But yeah, in my opinion, the main issue with this assignment wasn't really the difficulty, but misinterpretation of some questions. So totally, if you just want to ask me what's up, so just post your question in the chat, or if you want to like privately email me, you can do that too. But I'm just to make sure I'm gonna get done the like assigned questions and the quantity to do first, and then I'll do the assignment questions. But yeah, if there's time. But even if there's not, I'll stay on longer than 11:30 and take up your questions then, if that works, Ada. Cool. All right, it is 10:30, so let's start class. Okay, so I'm going to actually share my screen so you can see what's on my screen. And then I'm going to go to the YouTube tutorial link, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to open up the slides link. All right, and in this link, we can find examples of all of the coding problems that we'll be doing today. Ideally, I have like 10 questions in here. That might be too much. I also wanted to talk about the first midterm. So it is on October 4th. It is an all-day midterm. You have until the night to submit it. It is also, because you guys are so lucky, on Jupyter Hub. So you'll be submitting the assignments either on Avenue or Jupyter Hub as a Jupyter notebook. And all of the midterms will be auto-graded. So automatically graded. So in that case, make sure to test your code with the test cases to ensure it functions as you need them to. Also, because it's auto-graded, that means it's really easy to detect plagiarism, because we automatically use this plagiarism detection software. So please don't cheat. The midterm is, relatively soft for the first one, so I'm confident you guys will get a good mark without too much preparation. And then in order to prepare for the midterm, the best way is either to redo the Jupyter Hub assignments or do the coding back questions. In my opinion, the Jupyter Hub assignments are a better gauge of the difficulty, but coding bat is a useful resource too that we'll be looking at today. And yeah, if any of you have any concerns about how to submit assignments on Jupyter Hub or Avenue, I'll post a link in the description, I guess later on, about how to go through that process, just in case you guys aren't familiar. And cool. So let's move on. Okay, so the initial questions that we'll be getting done are on codingbat.com. So you guys can open up this link and navigate to the Python tab. And let's do the parrot treble question first, okay? Okay, so in CodingBat, all we have to do is very similar to what we have to do on the midterm, in that we have to design some function based on the question definition. So here I have a function called parrot treble that has two input variables, talking and hour, and my function has to have the correct output for the given input. So my function is based on this question where it says we have a loud talking parrot, and the hour parameter is the current hour time in the range from 0 to 23. And we are in trouble if the parrot is talking and the hour is before 7 or after 20. Return true if we are in trouble. Okay, so you guys can navigate to this URL and attempt this question. I'll give you guys 2 minutes, then we'll take it up. And just to reiterate, we have to return true if the parrot is talking and the hour is before 7 or after 20. So you guys can try to get that question done. If it's an easy question, I'd recommend trying to get it done in one line. And yeah, if you have that solution, you can post it in the chat. I'll be solving it with a few lines first, then maybe we can narrow it down later. But yeah, you have until 10:35 to get it done. How to call a function. Well, we call a function in a sheet by just calling the function name. That's it. Writing the function name. But yeah, so like I'll give you a few examples. If I open up my idle, so I can open up my Python environment while you guys are attempting the question. And if I wanted to call, let's say, some pre-built-in function, all I have to do is write that function name and call it appropriately. So if I wanted to call like the print function, I just have to write print followed by 2 brackets, and then print expects some data to be passed between the brackets. Let's say a string like my sheet, and that's how I would call a print function. Okay, I can't find it, Ada. Okay, so the URL is just codingbat.com, and we're trying to do the parrot treble question. So if you want to, yeah, it's on the, okay, so not already, it's in a few weeks, so you have some time, don't worry. So don't get stressed about it, Hassan, but yeah, it's on, according to the schedule, it's on October 4th. You have 3 in total, so you generally have like 1 about every month. Okay, so I'll just post the URL for you, Ada. So this is the first question that we're getting done, okay? All right, it's 10:35. Let's get this question done. Okay, so this question's not too bad. It's just a few basic if statements. So we have a loud talking parrot, and our condition is that if we can just have two if statements to define our condition. So we are trying to return true if the parrot is treble, and the parrot is in treble if, one, it's talking. So if talking is true. And the second condition is that if the hour is less than 7, or the hour is greater than 20, return true. Otherwise, you return false. Okay, and then I run this code. Awesome. So that's one way to get the question done. But there is a simpler way with less lines of code. And I'm really curious if any of you guys got that. So you guys can post the one-line solution in the comments if you understand, if you were able to get that done. No worries if not, because CodingBat, just like your midterm, does not care how many lines it takes you to get the right answer. As long as your function outputs the correct values, you get full marks. So you don't have to be the most efficient, but it is a cool thing to get that done sometimes. All right, did anyone get the one-line solution? No? Okay, that's okay. All right, actually, so I can show you the solution. So if we wanted to, we can absolutely use just two if statements to get this done, or we can do it all in just one line. And if you don't believe me, you can just copy and paste this into CodingBat and try that out as well. Cool. Okay, any questions? I don't see any questions, so let's do another coding problem. Okay, let's do combo string next. Okay, so I'm going to now navigate to Python, string 1, and combo string. Cool. All right, once again, a fairly simple question. In this function, I'm given two strings, string A and string B, and I have to output a concatenated string where the shorter string is on the inside and outside, and the longer string is, the shorter string is on either end, and the longer string is on the inside, right? So if my input is hello and hi, my output would be hi, hello, hi. So you guys can get that one done in 2 minutes, and then I'll take it up at 10:41. And I'll check the comments. Cool. Yes, normally I give out like candy or treats during the in-class tutorials for people that finish first, but I can't really do that now. So I was trying to think of ways to keep people motivated to come to class. I don't know if Indika mentioned this during the first tutorial, but there's no, if you look at the course syllabus, there's no graded components for the tutorials. All your marks come from only the assignments, the midterms, and the final exam, which means the tutorials aren't mandatory. They're totally supplementary, meant to help you understand and help you learn practical applications of coding. But if you feel like you can get that without your tutorial TAs, that's totally understandable because I'm sure you guys are really busy. So yeah, these classes are not mandatory. They're only meant to help you supplement your understanding. That being said, I would recommend to keep on coming to all your tutorials until at the least your first midterm, and then gauge how difficult that is and make an assessment on that. Oh, I'm sure you got it, Hassan. I'm sure you're going to do fine on the first tutorial. CompSci 1 MD3 students generally get a pretty high marks. Okay, I don't see any questions. So I'm going to wait till 10:41, then I'll take up that problem. Yeah, and if you have any advice on how I can improve my teaching, because normally I do this in class, so doing it online, I'm sure there's many things I could improve upon. So feel free to let me know. Anyways, it's 10:41, so let's get this question done. So again, very simple. All I have to do is output some string that's a combination of the two substrings correctly. So I can just make or initialize a new variable. Let's call that out as an empty string. So I have this new variable, and let's just zoom in actually. Maybe that will be more helpful for you guys. So I have this new variable called out, and then I'm just going to have two if statements that define either way out could look. So if A is longer than B, I want to output BAB. And if B is longer than A, I want to output ABA. But how do I determine the length of a string? Do any of you guys remember from last week? If not, that's totally cool. So I can use the length function. So let's say I have some string A that's equal to, hello. And I want to count how long A is. I can just use the length function. And what the length function does is I pass in some string or list, and it returns the length of that string. Right, so hello is 5 characters long. So when I pass this string through the length function, I get 5 as my output. So I can use the length function here, and I can say if the length of A is greater than the length of B, my output should be equal to B plus A plus B. Else, if otherwise, if the other option is true and that B is greater than A, my output should be A plus B plus A. Cool. And then I just have to return my concatenated string. And I can run my code, and it's totally correct. Awesome. Yeah, you're 125%. Yeah, sorry about that. I'll make sure to do that at the beginning next time. Okay, let's try out, okay, let's do squirrel play and then lucky sum and lone sum. Or actually, we'll just do squirrel play and lucky sum, I guess. Okay, so let's actually squirrel play, lucky sum, and rotate left 3. Okay, so let's do squirrel play next. So I'll go back to Python, and squirrel play is under logic 1. Okay, once again, you guys have until 10:47 to get this done. So here I have 2 squirrels, and they like to play outside, but they can only play outside if the temperature is between 60 and 90 inclusive, or if it's in summer, the temperature is between 100 and 90. So return true if the squirrels can play outside based upon the given input. So you guys can try that out until 10:47, and then I'll take it up. And yeah, I think someone mentioned they had some assignment questions. So yeah, if you have assignment questions, you can post them in the chat, and I'll take a look at them. Or you can email me too, if that's more comfy. Oh, and I know last week you guys had Indika as your tutorial TA. And so yeah, if you want to go to her class specifically, you can go to the 2:30 class because she'll be teaching that one today on Fridays. So that's cool too. Okay, let's take this up in a few minutes, and then we'll go into the custom problems. So we'll be taking it up in 1 minute. How do you call upon a def statement? So a def statement is used to define some function, some custom user-defined function, and in order to call any function, I just call that function's name. So let's say I have some function, I have a new Python script, and I'll call this Python script Jerica's example. So let me go to work, and then I believe this is T06. Jerica's, good question. Okay, so let's say I have some function that I'm defining. I'll call this def print or def return I. Okay. And this function has no input parameters because all the function does is return the letters I. And so I have this defined function, return hi, and I want to now call upon this function. So all I have to do is call the function name, followed by 2 brackets. And that's how I call a defined function. Right, so this would just return hi. If I want to actually print out that value, I just print the returned value. There we go. If I wanted to, I can make this function equal to some variable, let's say x. And then I could print x. Awesome. Okay, cool. Okay, I think Karthik has a solution. I'll try that one out. Copying your cheating off you through the comments, Karthik. Okay, so let's get this question done. So it's pretty simple one once again. So I have 2 conditions. The first condition is that if it is summer, so if is summer is true. And then my second if statement that I should be checking for is if the temperature is less than equal to 100 and it is greater than equal to 60, so that's the range that we're in between, then we should return true because the squirrels can play outside. A second condition that I should check in my else if statement is that else if it's not summer, but the temperature is less than equal to 90 and it's greater than equal to 60, we once again should return true. And if neither of these conditions are true, then we should return false. Cool. Okay, so let's run the code, and awesome. Okay, let's try to get the rest of the questions done before 10:56, and then I can take up the slide stuff. Okay, so let's go back to CodingBat, and the next question we can do is, let's do lucky sum. Yeah, let's do lucky sum. Okay, so lucky sum, it's another pretty easy one that I'm confident you guys can get done. So here I have 3 inputted values, A, B, and C, 3 inputted numbers, and I have to add up the sum of the numbers in a special way. So I have to add up the sum of the numbers unless one of the numbers is equal to 13. If a number is equal to 13, then that number and all numbers to the right of that number are ignored. Okay, so you guys can try to get this one done. I wouldn't overthink it. Because there are only 3 values, you don't have to use like a loop or anything. You can probably just hard code it with statements. It's probably about the same like efficiency. So yeah, I'll give you guys until 10:53 to get it done. Then I'll take it up, and then we'll do one more coding back question, and then we'll do some questions about lists and for loops. Not sure how to indent. I'm sorry, what is that? I'm not too sure what that means. Oh, in the comments. Oh yeah, that's totally cool. No worries. I get what you're saying. Yeah, it looks right to me. But of course, the best judge of rightness is coding bat. Okay, one more minute to get lucky sum done, and then I'll take it up. And then we'll do the list question, and then we'll talk about for loops and such. How is my audio quality, by the way? I'm always self-conscious about that. I have this like fancy mic, but I'm not sure if it's doing any help. Okay, 10:53, so let's take up this question. All right, so this question, it's a pretty easy one. I can just define it with a few if statements. So I can test each condition if either A, B, or C is equal to 13. So if A is equal to 13, then I should return the sum of, well, because A is equal to 13, and that means that A and B and C should all be ignored, right? Because those values are ignored then, because if a number is equal to 13, then that number and all numbers to the right are ignored. So I can return 0 then. Then I can check else if B is equal to 13. Sorry, is equal to 13. Well, if B is equal to 13, I should add A, but B should be ignored and C should be ignored. So I should return just A. Else if C is equal to 13, well, in that case, I will be adding B. I will be adding A. I will be adding B, but C should be ignored. So I should return A plus B. And finally, if neither A, B, or C are equal to 13, then I can return all 3 values, A plus B plus C. Awesome. Okay, really quickly, let's get one more question done. Let's do rotate left 3. Okay, this one is super, super simple. Let's go to Python, and I think it's list 1, rotate left 3. Cool. Okay, so I'm not sure if we talked about lists yet, so I'll give a mini tutorial about that. Okay, so at this point in the class, we know about 2 data types, ints and strings. Ints are used to store positive and negative whole numbers, right? So I can have a variable num that's equal to the int 5, for example, and num is equal to that number. The second data type we learned about are strings, right? So I can have some string s, and that's equal to some sequence of characters, let's say hello T06, and my string can be equal to that sequence of characters, no problem. But you might be wondering, how can you store more than one piece of data in a variable. Like let's say I had a list, let's say, of number and string variables, and I wanted to store all of those variables inside one variable. How can I do that? Well, I can use something called a list. And what a list does is it allows us to store a sequence of pieces of data, right? So let's say I have some list that I'll initialize as L, and I can say my list L is equal to square brackets and whatever data I put between the square brackets. So I can put several numbers, one after another. Let's say 45, 30, 20, and 5. And now I have this variable that's equal to not just 5, but all of these pieces of data. So I'm able to store all of these pieces of data inside just one variable. And obviously that makes things much more efficient and much more organized, potentially. So I can access the entire list by just calling the variable name. Or if I want to, I can access a specific index of that list. So let's say I wanted to access the 0th index. I just type in L, followed by 2 square brackets, and the index of the number I want to access. Right, so if I type in L0, then I get 45. Because in coding, we start counting from 0. So this index would be 0. This index would be 1. This index would be 2. This index would be 3. So if I want to access the second index, I just type in L and a 1. And there we go. I believe, yeah. I can also count backwards too in lists. So if I type in L -1, I get the index, the first index from the end. And I can access data in a very cool and convenient way in lists. Strings can also be indexed, by the way. So for example, if I have the string of the following characters in S, if I want to get the first element, I just write S, followed by a square bracket and 0, and I get the first element, or the 0th element. I can also get multiple elements at a time. So if I type in S, followed by a 0, then a colon, and let's say a 4, I would get all of the elements between those two indices. Right, oh, that wasn't intentional. Cool. So when indexing, the first element refers to the beginning of your splice, and the second number refers to the end of the splice, non-inclusive. And the last cool thing about splicing is I can change the way that we count or increment. So if I leave the first and second indices blank, the default values of 0 and the length of the string are assumed. And there is a third input option where I can choose the increment. So instead of taking every letter in a string, I can take every second letter, or I can take every third letter. Cool. Or if I want to, I can take every letter inversely, and that reverses the string. So this might be important for a question we'll do later on. Okay, now with this in mind, let's talk about this question. So here I have a list of 3 numbers, and I have to return a list with the numbers rotated correctly, rotated left correctly. So I have to rotate all the numbers 1 position to the left. So you guys can just hard code this. You don't need to use like a loop or anything, because it's always going to be 3 elements that you need to return. Okay, so let's try to get this done by 11:01. This one's super simple. And then we'll take up some more questions. How to add or remove items in a list? Good question. Yeah, so there are a couple of things we can do. We can, I don't know if list has a pop function, but I think we can pop elements from a list. I know that strings have pop. Let me see if lists have a pop function. So if I have a list L and I do L.pop, yeah, and that removes the last element from the list. Or I think I can also pass in an index to pop. And that removes the number at that index from the list. So we can use pop to remove elements from a list. And to add elements, I think we can just do like, if I have some list L, I can do L plus some other list, 2. And that makes a new list that concatenates the 2. Okay, let's take up question number, let's take up this question. Okay. All right, so this one is really simple. So we can use our string indexing to get this done. So if I have my list of 3 elements and I want to return them all shifted 1 to the left, I can just return my list of numbers, or nums, with the second element first, followed by the third element, and then the first element. Okay, let's try this out. Or my bad. All right, if I do nums, you get 2, 3. Oh, that's right. Rotated left, right? Rotated left. 1, 2, 0. No, this is right. Wait, let me try this out again. I think someone posted a solution in the chat. So return. Do I have to put them in square brackets? Okay, let's try that out. Oh, it's still being funny. Rotate left 2, 3. Oh, this is my output. Oh, wait, my bad. Okay, sorry. I'm summing up the values. I'm not like indexing them. Okay, my apologies. Okay, so let's do it like this then. Okay, so I can make a new list. So instead, what I can do is I can return a new list with these values one after another. And that should resolve our problem. Fingers crossed. Okay, my apologies about that. So I assumed it would be like this, or I can just add list values one after another, but I guess there's a type difference. Regardless, we got this question done, so let's go to the slides. Okay, so let's skip to this question here. So if we go to the slides and we can do question 3. So in this question, we are given a list in the following format, and we can actually copy this list right into our code. And we have to write a Python program that counts the number of black dogs in our list. Okay, so let's make a new Python program. So I'm going to hit Control-N, or I can go to File, New File, and I can save this, and I'll save it in the appropriate place so I can look at this again later. So this is Q3. Okay, and I can just copy and paste the exact same list that we saw into our code. Let me just make this bigger, and I'll reformat this so it's easier for us to understand. So I'll just put some enters. Okay, so this list is really cool because it's a list with lists inside of it. So I have one main list, and each element of the list are more lists. So how do we index such a list? Well, very simply. Let's suppose I just copy and pasted this list into idle, where I can quickly prototype things. And now I have my list of neighborhood dogs. Cool. Okay, so if I wanted to access one of the elements in the list, we know exactly what to do. We just type in the list name, followed by 2 square brackets that have the index. So if I wanted to access the second element, I just write 1 in the index, and I get the second element. But how do I get these specific strings or sub-elements inside the nested list? Well, what I can do is I can just type another set of square brackets for the second index. This is known as a two-dimensional list. Okay, so if I type in a 1 or 0, for example, I'll get the first index, which is yellow Labrador. Cool. Now we have to make a Python program that iterates through this list and each nested list and prints out how many black dogs are in that list. So in order to iterate through a list, we can use something called a for loop. And a for loop is the easiest way to iterate through a sequence of data. So how a for loop works is I can just write for, and I can say, let's say, dogs in, or you can say that each of these lists represent a house. So I can say for house in neighborhood dogs. What this does is it iterates through the entire list neighborhood dogs with each element being represented by this variable house. So I can say for house in neighborhood dogs. And to demonstrate this, I'll just print out what house is at each iteration of the loop. Okay, let's run this code. There we go, one at a time. We're iterating through the list. But then I want to also iterate through the sublist. So how can I do that? Well, with another for loop, of course. So now I can say for each dog in house. So now we are going to iterate through the sublist house with the variable dog, one dog at a time. And I can demonstrate this by printing out the dog variable. If I run my code, I'm now able to successfully iterate through every single element in the entire list. Cool. And what they asked us to do is to determine or to count the number of black dogs in the entire nested list. So how can I count? How can I determine if a dog is black? Well, if black is in the entire string, if the substring black is in the entire string. So we can do this pretty easily using the in keyword. So let's suppose I have a string, s is equal to hello people. Okay, and if I want to determine if people is in my string, I can just write people in string, people in s, and this will return true or false if this condition is true, right? On whether or not this condition is true, right? For example, if I typed in humans in s, I would get false. So we can use the same idea here. Right, I can say, just if black, if substring black is in the string dog, then let's have some counter. We can call this black underscore dogs. That's initially equal to 0, and I can increment that counter one at a time. Okay, and then at the end, I can print out the total number of black dogs. So I can say the string, the list has, then I'll write the number, which is black dogs. I'll say the list has this number of black dogs. And so because one type is a string and the other type is an int, I will connect the two with a comma, not a plus operand. Okay, so let's get this done. So if I run my code, it says 7, and I believe there are 7 black dogs in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Awesome. Okay, let's do one last question. Any other questions? I said you added them. You added them. Ah, yeah, sorry. Thanks, guys. You guys are too quick for me. You guys should be teaching the tutorial instead. Okay, so let's do question 5. Okay, so last question for the day, finally, hopefully. So in this question, you have to make a function called translate light. And this function takes a sentence in the form of a string as the input, and the function outputs that string with each word inverted. So if my string is may the force be with you, it outputs all of the same words, but just inverted. Okay. All right. So you guys can try that out. I'll give you guys until like 11:13 to get that done, and then I'll take it up. So I think someone just hopped on the stream right now. So right now we're taking up the final question in the slides, question number 5. Oh, and this one talks about defining functions. So I think that's something a few people have questions about. So I think this is a good problem to challenge, to take up. Okay, 1 more minute to get this question done, and then we'll take it up. Okay, it's 11:13. Let's take up the question. So the first thing that the question does is it says create a function named translate light. So I'm going to go back to Python. I'm going to make a new Python file, and I'll save it as Q5. Okay, work, COMPSCI 1MD3, tutorial 2, T06, Q5. Cool. Okay, and it first says to make a function named translate light. So to make a function, I just write def, followed by the function name, which is translate light. So that's a camel case naming convention, which isn't that common for Python, but it's cool. Followed by 2 brackets, and in those brackets, I write the variables that may be passed in. So I think it says as input, we get one string variable, which is a sentence. So I'll say the input variable is sentence. And then, of course, to end the first line of the function, I just have to write a colon. Cool. Okay. So then what it asks us to do is it asks us to output a string with each word inverted. So there are 2 ways to take on this challenge. There is the hard way, and then there's the Pythonic way, which means an easy way, because Python has so many built-in functions to make coding easier. So we absolutely could just iterate through this string, 1 element at a time, and then whenever we see a space, determine that's when a new word starts, and then flip those previous letters. We totally can get that done. Or you can be a little cheeky and use a built-in function in Python instead, which I think would be easier. So we can use something called the split function. Right. So what the split function does is it splits some string into a list based on some defined delimiter. So let's say I have a string, and that string is equal to a series of words separated by commas. So word 1, hello, people, hi. Okay. That's string 1. Cool. And if I type s.split, And if I pass into the brackets the delimiter, which in this case I can make it a comma, that returns a list with the string split into the following sections, separated by the delimiter. So the delimiter doesn't have to be a comma, it can be anything. I can make it like a letter too, like for example, what letter gets repeated. I can make it like an E if I want to. That returns a different list. Now in our case, what would be the most useful delimiter? A space, right? So let's suppose I have some sentence as the input, and then I can make a list of words that's equal to the sentence dot split, and my delimiter is the space. Okay, let's test out what we've done so far. I'll then print out, or then I'll return words. Cool. Okay, and let's suppose I call the translate light function here, and I want to print out the response of translate light, and I'll pass in the string, may the force be with you. May the force be with you. Cool. And then I'll run my code. And so this now prints out a list of words based upon the inputted string. If I had a different string like hello, there, T06, it would output that list instead. Okay, and so the next thing we have to do is we have to return a sentence with each word inverted. So what I'll do is I'll have some empty initialized sentence to begin with. I'll say a new sentence, which is equal to null to begin with. And then I'll iterate through the list. And of course, we know the best way to iterate through a list is with the for loop. So I'll say for each word in words. And then I'll concatenate the inverted word onto the string. So how do we invert a word again? How do we invert a string again? Yeah, we can use the indexing, right? So I can say new underscore sentence plus equals word flipped around. So I can flip around the word by typing colon colon -1. And then I can return my new sentence. I think that's it. So let's run the code and we can test that out. Oh, we might need some spaces too. Okay, so let's run the code. Cool, and that flips over every word that I pass in. And I think because I just ran the Python shell, the function is still accessible. So if I can call translate light again. So I believe I can type translate light, followed by some other values. Yeah, let's see, may the force be with you. And I can run my code again, and I get the correct output. Cool. Okay, any questions? Are we allowed to import libraries in the assignment? Okay, so you can import any libraries that already exist by default in Python because the assignments are auto-graded, right? So as long as the code works, when the auto-grader runs it, you'll get full marks. So don't use any libraries that you have to install. But for example, if you have to use like the math library, right, you can import that in. I will say, if you need to use any library, the question will probably tell you to begin with. So I wouldn't get distracted by using a library. I would only use one if the question tells you to. Okay, any questions? Any additional questions? So it's 11:20, which is technically when we're supposed to end. But yeah, if you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about, I'll hang around for like another 2 minutes or longer if need be. Or if not, you guys can tune out and have a great weekend. And I'm here till 4:30 because of the second class. Okay, so I'll be on to 11:20, but you guys can tune out. So I don't get why there's 24 people on the stream, but in the slides, there's only like 8. So I guess you guys are just using my YouTube stream instead, which I imagine would be kind of clunky. Guys are still hanging around, just watching. Okay, cool. Oh yeah, no problem, Alicia. Yeah, no worries. You guys won't be thanking me when you get your marks back. Wow, you guys are so nice. Jeez. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks. um, yeah. So I'll stay around till 11:22. Yeah. No worries. One more minute, unless you guys tune out. And I do not see any new questions coming in. So I have a proposal for you all, actually, which is that I'm like 50 subs away from getting to 5K subs. So what if you guys all just sub today, and if I cross 5K, I'll give you guys all 12s. Just don't tell anyone, okay? That's a pinky promise. So I copy pasted my code from the assignment to my own Jupyter book with the software detected as plagiarism. Yeah, so how it works is it checks to see if any of these student assignments match each other. So if your code is similar to another student's code, then the software would flag it. So if that was the case, then it would flag it, Naga. But that sounds like that's not the case from what you're describing. Okay, so I'll give you like a minute to respond, Naga, if that works. And if not, I guess I'll tune out. I'll have breakfast. Yeah, so just to reiterate the question, we use MOS, which is a really common way to detect plagiarism in code, Naga. And so if your code is found to be similar to another submission, to another student's code, then that would be detected as plagiarism. Cool. Okay, I'm going to tune out then. Have a good weekend, guys. Bye.